Christmas carries expectations. There's this idea of how Christmas is supposed to feel: joyful, connected, grateful, light. And yet for many people, Christmas arrives with weight. Before we begin, I want to say this gently. This is a special Christmas message of And That's Okay for anyone who is carrying grief, loneliness, financial stress, family tension, or simply feeling overwhelmed this season. And you may not be feeling any of those things this season. But if that's the case, this episode might still be for you, as a way to better understand someone close to you who is. Sometimes the most meaningful gift we offer is presence. Not presents, but Presence, presence, patience, and compassion. If Christmas feels complicated for you this year, this space is for that. Welcome to And That's Okay, the podcast where we explore the ups and downs of life and remind ourselves that whatever we're feeling, it's for a reason, and that's okay. I'm Lisa Renee Scott, your host and a passionate believer that every feeling matters and every step forward counts. Each week, we'll dive into real-life challenges, share relatable experiences, and uncover simple, actionable steps to help you navigate it all. So let's take a deep breath, lean in, and get started. I want to begin with the feeling that often comes first at Christmas. The one that doesn't always get acknowledged, because for many, this season immediately brings to mind someone who isn't here anymore. There is an empty chair at Christmas, names that don't get said out loud, stockings that aren't hung anymore, traditions that quietly change because someone isn't here to take part in them. Grief doesn't follow a calendar. It doesn't pause because it's December. It doesn't soften just because there are lights on the house. Sometimes grief shows up as sadness. Sometimes it shows up as irritability, numbness, tears in the middle of the grocery store, and sometimes it shows up as a quiet ache that doesn't leave. Christmas has a way of making absence louder. If you are carrying grief this season, you don't need to wrap it up neatly. You don't need to explain it. And you don't need to rush through it. You can carry love and loss at the same time. Grief can feel deeply personal, and at the same time, it can quietly lead into another experience. Even when we're surrounded by people, even when the calendar is full, there can still be a sense of being alone in what we're carrying. Loneliness doesn't always look like being alone. Sometimes it shows up at a crowded table, in a room full of conversations you didn't quite belong in. While everyone else seems connected and you feel just slightly out of place. You can be surrounded by people and still feel unseen. You can be included and still feel separate. You can show up and still feel like you don't fully fit. Loneliness at Christmas can feel confusing, especially when the expectation is togetherness. It can make you question why the connection you want doesn't feel available, why being present doesn't always feel like being close. If that finds you this season, you don't need to talk yourself out of it. You don't need to perform cheer to compensate for it. You're allowed to notice it quietly and tend to yourself gently. Loneliness doesn't always stand on its own. It often shows up alongside other pressures. The ones that sit quietly in the background and influence how safe, secure, or stretched we feel this season. One of those pressures is financial stress. Christmas can be expensive. Not just financially, but emotionally. There's pressure to give, to match expectations, to make things special, to keep up with traditions that cost more than they used to. Financial stress can sit under everything. Under the shopping, under the gatherings, under the conversations. It can bring worry, compassion, and guilt, a constant mental tally of what's possible and what isn't. If money feels tight this season, that stress deserves acknowledgement. You don't need to justify your limits to anyone. You don't need to stretch yourself thin to meet expectations. You don't need to measure your worth by what you're able to provide. Enough doesn't have to look like excess. Financial strain can add weight to relationships. It can change the tone of conversations, increase sensitivity, and make already complicated family dynamics even heavier. And for many of us, family itself is one of the most challenging parts of this season. For some, Christmas highlights relationships that feel strained. Old dynamics resurface, unspoken boundaries get tested, and silences feel heavier. Distance becomes more noticeable. Family tension doesn't disappear because it's a holiday. Estrangement doesn't resolve itself because it's tradition. You might be attending gatherings that feel uncomfortable, or staying away from gatherings that used to be part of your life. Both can carry their own weight. If family relationships are complicated for you, you don't need to pretend that they aren't. You don't need to minimize the impact they have on you. You don't need to force closeness where it doesn't feel safe or honest. Protect your peace. It's allowed. When emotional strain, expectations, and unresolved dynamics come together, they often show up somewhere else, in the body, in the nervous system, in the feeling of being maxed out. That's where overwhelm tends to enter the picture. Because Christmas is loud. The music, the lights, the crowds, the conversations, the constant movement. Even good things can become too much. Overwhelm doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're doing the season wrong. It means your system is taking in more than it can hold comfortably. If your body is asking for space or stillness or fewer inputs, that message is worth listening to. Stepping away doesn't mean stepping out of the season. Sometimes it's a way to stay connected to yourself inside. As we begin to wrap up, I want to slow down. Not to summarize, not to fix, just to leave you with a little more space than when we started. I want to offer a few gentle invitations, not tasks, not fixes, just options. You might choose one, or you might choose none. Take one quiet moment alone this week, with no distractions, just stillness. Maybe check in with yourself honestly and ask, what am I carrying today that's heavy? Maybe give yourself permission to leave early from a party, or arrive late, or not even go at all. Create one small pocket of calm that belongs only to you. Christmas doesn't require a performance. It doesn't require you to feel any specific way. However this season meets you, with grief, loneliness, stress, overwhelm, happy, joy, grateful, connected, your experience is allowed to take up space. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I just want to say from my heart to yours, Merry Christmas. Thanks for tuning into this episode of And That's Okay. I hope our conversation left you encouraged and equipped with practical steps that you can start using in your own life. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need this message. And if you're loving the podcast, you'll definitely want to grab a copy of my book, And That's Okay. It's available on Amazon or through my website. Just check the link in my bio or in the captions of this episode. For daily inspiration, reflections, and more tools to support your growth, come connect with me on social media. I'd love to hear how you're applying these steps in your own life. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you that I'm not a licensed doctor or therapist. I'm simply sharing experiences and insights that have helped me and others like me along the way. Remember, whatever you're feeling or going through, you have feelings, and that's okay.